Hi there, I'm Ryan Chandler. Here's your talking points for this week. Finally, victory for veterans. Thousands of servicemen and women in our area will now benefit from the PACT Act after they were exposed to toxins while fighting overseas. But it wasn't until they had to fight our Congress here at home. We'll talk with the leader of the Lubbock VFW on how they finally got the care they need. And the 134 PAC says they believe in a democratic future for rural Texas. We'll talk with former congressional candidate John Mark Hogg on his work fighting to restore Democrats' influence in West Texas.
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points.
Happy Sunday and thanks for joining us. The Lubbock Area Veterans War Memorial is among the largest in the United States outside of D.C. On it, inscribed on more than $1 million of marble and bricks, are the names of our neighbors who have died in service to our country. There are more than 900 names on that wall, and veterans routinely gather there to show their respect. It's a respect that they say has not been shown back to them from their representatives in Washington recently. In addition to the hundreds of fallen soldiers whose names are on that wall, there are thousands more just in our area who are now sick or dying because of toxins to which they were exposed overseas. Some dying decades after leaving the battlefield, killed not by combatants, but by cancer. Whether it was Agent Orange in Vietnam or burn pits in Afghanistan, these veterans sustained injuries as a direct result of their service, but have fought for decades to have that need recognized by our Congress. That's why the Senate ultimately passed the PACT Act this week. That expanded health care benefits to toxic exposure victims, but not before plenty of politics, posturing, and parliamentary procedure got in the way. KAMC's Anna Wernicke brings us this week's fight from Washington.
Senators joined veterans outside the Capitol late Tuesday to celebrate the passage of the Honoring Our Pact Act.
To our veterans who have been exposed to toxic chemicals from burn pits, we have your back. Finally.
Moments earlier, the Senate passed the bill 86-11, expanding life-saving health care benefits for veterans exposed to the toxic fumes of burn pits.
No more, no more will veterans go to VA hospitals and be told, get a lawyer, go find some arcane, ridiculous proof before we'll give you help.
The $280 billion package would no longer force veterans to prove that their illness was caused by toxic exposures suffered in the military in order to get VA coverage. The House passed the bill in July, but it stalled in the Senate after several Republicans, including Pennsylvania's Senator Pat Toomey, demanded an amendment be added to ensure that the money in the package couldn't be spent on unrelated programs.
What I'm trying to limit is the extent to which they can use a budgetary gimmick to reclassify spending so that they can go on an unrelated spending binge.
Senator Toomey voted against the final bill, but Democrats were still able to secure enough Republican votes to push it through.
They deserve access to care as quickly as they can possibly get it.
This is a day to celebrate because it's a day that Congress actually worked.
Anna Wernicke from Washington, thank you. Now we're honored to be joined by a man who has led the fight for the PACT Act from right here at home, Lubbock VFW Chief of Staff and a member of the VFW National Legislative Committee, Benny Guerrero. Mr. Guerrero, thank you so much for your service and for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
It has been a very long few weeks and really an unnecessarily long few decades to get to where we are today. Take us through what this process has been like for you fighting for the PACT Act for so long.
Well, I would rather have deployed maybe 2 or 3 more times than to fight this fight. This fight should not have been fought, you know. I mean, it should have been that much easier. So it was pretty difficult. It's an uphill battle. You know, just imagine that the less than 1% of Americans who serve our country and fight for freedoms around the world come back to ask for their country and its citizens for support and help in combating the illnesses that we've actually received on the battlefield, and to be told no. To be wait to decades and then to see your buddies die. And you know, it's just, they didn't die on the battlefield, they died at home. And to us, it's like they died on the back because they've been fighting this war for decades and decades. You know, over 300,000 Vietnam veterans have died because of Agent Orange exposure. And not on the battlefield, but here at home. Their families have had to suffer alongside, and because it was not taken care of, that was passed on to their children. So some of their children have the effects of Agent Orange. So we wanted, and I am so grateful for it to finally have passed. But you know, I would much rather deploy than to do this again. It's just really difficult to get them our Congress and our Senate to work together. It's just, it should be an American thing. It shouldn't be a Republican or Democrat thing. It should be an American thing. And you know, so when you start looking at the way our society is working now, it's harder for the recruiter to recruit right now. Well, rightly so. The way you've treated our veterans for the past decades, it's rightly so. And we're trying to change that. We want our young, brave men and women to serve our country so that they could, you know, be ready to fight our wars that need to be fought. But again, we went out voluntarily to fight a war. We're asking them to voluntarily support us now that we're ill and ill. Yeah.
You also take on the brave task of dealing directly with our congressmen for legislative affairs for the VFW.
Yes.
So you have spoken directly with many Senate offices in order to get this passed recently.
Yes.
When you talk to our Senator Cruz, what is his office telling you about why this took so long and why we're only getting here now?
Well, you know, when you speak to a politician, they put a barrier between themselves and someone because they don't want it to be recorded and, you know, leaked. But we've heard.
Did you talk directly to Senator Cruz?
No, I did not talk directly.
You couldn't do that?
No, I couldn't do that. I talked to his staffers, and when you speak to his staffers, it's a parliamentary procedure that was going in, and they were really cautious about moving forward without. And again, I've not seen the lingo, but the lingo the procedure was that one of the parties was putting $400 billion worth of you know, pork in order for them to throw back to the cities that support their candidate. So and again, that's just hearing it from the ground, not from the actual senators, but that's hearing it from the DC staffers. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you make of that explanation? Depending on who you talk to, there's a lot of reasons why this got so delayed. Yeah. Republicans say that this was what they call a budgetary gimmick from Democrats. Yeah. Democrats are saying that this was retribution for some other legislation that passed recently. Yeah. What do you make when you hear that?
You know, whenever I deployed 12 times, and it just really hurts. But to even think about it, you know, when we deploy and I'm there to protect my friend and he's there to protect me, I never ask what color he is. I never ask who he voted for. I never ask what religion he is. We just know that we're both Americans and we're there to survive and win this war. You know, when we get sent to war by our elected officials, it's win at all costs. You win. You bring us home a victory. And we go out and we lose some of our friends. And so this itself, we want a victory. And when these guys and gals are fighting in Congress for whatever reason, it makes us question the sacrifice. We've sacrificed so much treasure to keep our country free. Over 1 million men and women have died to protect our freedoms. And for you to pull a gimmick or to fight in Congress to make it look, I mean, we question the sacrifice. And I'm telling you, it hurts. I would much rather, again, I mean, the fight's not over. We still got a couple of things that we're doing, and we enjoy working with our elected officials. But I'm telling you, this one here, again, I'd rather deploy 2 more times. And it's so stressful. And it's really, I mean, it keeps you up at night, especially when you're trying to tell the families that, hey, it's almost there. The families that are suffering from nuclear exposure, you know, because they were handling nuclear bombs. And it's just, these are the families that live here in Lubbock that we want to help out. And it's unfortunate. But the great thing is that, you know, we want to tackle suicide. We want to tackle homelessness. With this thing right here, this PACT Act, is going to help us address those, because homelessness, some of the homelessness comes from you having to, you know, shell out money to provide health care for yourself, because you're out of money now. You got a little bit of money, but you want to stay alive. And the other one is when you've given up. So this PACT Act gives us hope. It gives those veterans, those 8,000+ veterans that live in our area that have been exposed to this stuff, just a little bit more breathing room and a little hope, and I am so grateful for it.
You know, there's a phrase that politics is war by other means. No, it is not.
No.
There were no politics on the battlefield when you deployed 12 times.
Yes.
There was none of that.
No.
And for a lot of people have the luxury of making this a political issue. For you, this is a very personal one.
Yes.
And you're right, it is not over. Unfortunately, this is not going to save the men and women that you know who need this care,
Yeah.
but it is a first step. So what are the next steps? How can people help our VFW to make sure that we continue getting you all the care you need?
Okay, so I ask right now all the citizens that are here in Lubbock, go register with the VA. Identify yourself so that we can actually start to diagnose you for the things, the ailments that right now we fought for. Not everybody. There's roughly 20,000 plus veterans in the area, your viewing area. Just imagine that. If we get all these guys and gals to register with the VA, we'll identify maybe additional needs and requirements, and we can actually increase our resources at the Super VA clinic here in Lubbock. But we won't be able to increase our resources here until we get these guys and gals out of wherever they're at, not wanting to seek the health care, go out there and get that health care you rightly and richly deserve. So I think that is our next step. So I'm also on the Veterans Advisory Committee for the city of Lubbock, and that is going to be our biggest push, is to make sure that our veterans here understand that the VA is there to welcoming and the PACT Act is there to support them.
Well, we'll make sure people have the information they need so that they can help get you the care that you need. Mr. Guerrero, thank you so much for talking with us. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And when we come back, a conversation with John Mark Hogg about his 134 pack and what they hope is the future of Democrats in West Texas.